Oh, what's happening, plebs? We out here with another episode of History of the Yu-Gi-Oh Player. This time we're going back to PPG this time, and we're with the mascot of the team. I'd like to say, Mr. 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 Desmond Johnson, who a lot of you will probably remember from the recent ARG stream on that absolutely horrendous commentary. So yeah, hi, welcome. What's up?
Nothing much, man. Just chilling with my boys here. We got Drew Carter and Ben Leverett on the side of me.
Oh, sweet, awesome. But yeah, feel free to take the reins now and just give us like a little brief introduction. Tell us what you do, what you play these days, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah. I guess I started at the beginning of like my first time getting into real Yu-Gi-Oh. I had just graduated high school, and a friend of mine told me about a place called Super Games. And I had never really been to I've been to a few locals, but like it was every time my friend would come pick me up or whatever. And that was back when I played Yu-Gi-Oh and thought MST negated stuff. Like I thought destroy me negated. I didn't understand chain links and all that kind of stuff. I feel like everyone starts from that point too. I always find that funny. And so I got the Super Games, and if you want to thrive at Super Games, you get whipped into shape real quick. Like all that not understanding rules and stuff and everything, all of that just changes, and you improve over time there. So I started like advancing my decks and going to a few more events, and then I found Karakuris. And it was like 2012, late 2012. One of my friends, Andrew Spukas, he told me that there's a no, not Andrew Spukas. I can't remember his name, but he told me about a card called Solar Windjammer. It'll be coming out. So I got it, and it just made the deck explode. And I played it at the YCS in Miami, and I made it all the way to top 4. And that was like the beginning of my Yu-Gi-Oh career. And the next event I topped again, and from there I just knew that I had the ability to become more.
So like you went from like not knowing how MST works to like top fouring in like how long was that?
Yeah, I never even topped the regional before that.
Top 4 YCS before you topped the regional.
Yeah, and so from there I hung out with a certain group, and then there was some Patrick. He introduced himself to me more as I started topping. I topped the YCS. I think it was in Texas. I topped YCS Austin immediately after that, and I got top 32 there. And
What
so I
format was
went to
that?
Jersey with the same deck, and Pat was telling me, Desmond, you can't just keep playing card curies all the time. And I said, no, I'm gonna play it again. So I took it to Jersey, and I started out really well, and then I just bubbled out. And then I said, I'm gonna give it one more try, and tried it at nationals. And Pat pleaded with me not to do it, and I said, no, I'm gonna do it. And I just threw my event away there too. I felt like I definitely threw my event away. So after that, I had to like not necessarily evolve, but I took my gaming in a different direction. I didn't want to just be the card creator guy. I wanted to win. I wanted to be better at Yu-Gi-Oh. So I started working with Pat and Ben, and they taught me how to do real testing. And I think that's where my skill really came from.
Around what year was this going on? When you guys, well, I guess when you kind of like after your Texas top, this must have been like 2012, 13,
2013.
2013.
It was I topped Texas in March of 2013, and the YCS in Miami was February.
I see.
That was times we won.
All right. Going back a little bit though, Ben and Patrick. I mean, Patrick kind of made a name for himself around about this time. So like, how did you guys even become friends? Like, how did you know each other? If you want to like, I believe at the start you wanted to talk a little bit about how you guys kind of met, how you like became sort of like the family, you know?
Oh yeah. I would love to talk about that. So, firstly, like I said, I graduated high school in 2010, and I started going to Super Games about late 2010, early 2011, and Ben and Zach Leverett, they was like really little kids, and their mom was bringing them there. And Patrick was going there. He went to that locals, but he already had like some kind of prestige, and I rolled with a different crew then, so we didn't like hang out then. But as the time goes by, I would see their mom, Miss Leverett. I would say hey, I would be polite or whatever, and introduce myself all the time. So she said she thought of me as a really nice person, and then I started going out to dinner with them. And then from there, I just started hanging out with them, and they saw some kind of talent in me that Pat essentially just took me under his wing and started showing me the ropes. And he did the same for Ben, and we learned together. We all learned together. He taught us this testing method where we play with our hands open. There's really good methods of getting better. And one day I spent I think it was one random week. Me and Pat were going. Pat was like, "Hey, I'm going over to the Lever's house to stay for a little while. Would you like to come?" It was in the summer, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." So I went and hung out with them for a week, and then eventually it turned into longer than a week. And then, but that same summer they went to Worlds, so I went home for a little while. They came back, and Miss Lever just said, "Desmond, would you like to just stay here for a little while, get some clothes, and go to school here?" And so I started staying here, and it's been the greatest experience ever. The testing, the traveling, everything. Miss Lever has been the greatest mom, essentially, ever.
That's like almost like the gaming house that became like you guys were just like testing for that whole summer, and that was 2014. Was that summer? Or I believe you guys were testing it because I only know this because like Patrick talked a lot about it in his book when you guys were testing Sylvans and stuff. Um,
Yeah, it's
that was
2014.
that was 2014.
Yeah, I remember that stuff. I can't believe he put that in the book. It was so funny.
You haven't even read it?
You're talking about when? Oh no! Well, actually, I even made a post about it. I went to every page in Pat's book that had my name and read that chapter.
Okay, but you didn't read the rest of it. Best
Yeah, I
friends
did not
here.
read. So, but yeah, that was a really funny story, and I do regret that too. And that was that. I'm so glad he actually made that a point of that, because that's a mistake that any player can make, just thinking that a deck is good because of what's happened the night before. So like, yeah, that was that was funny.
So what was it like just being like in this house of like, really, really great player like Patrick, like just like being able to like test like whenever you want and stuff like that. Um, it's like a camp almost, for like a like
Yeah.
a like a summer. Um, and when I think about like actually doing that practically, like for a lot of people that's obviously not possible. Um, but I mean, how much would you say like you learned like in that period? Like, do you think that it kind of just like it's like that Zenkai boost, you just become like from really low down in the ladder kind of thing, even though you were like top in YCSs and stuff, but you went on a big streak in 2014 after this happened, didn't you?
Yeah, the top two ARGs, and then I top YCS Mexico.
Yeah,
But
Mexico.
yeah, honestly, on a personal level, it was a huge culture shock first coming getting to know them, because we came from different worlds. I didn't come from the richest of families or like with money or whatever, and this was just a whole new world to me. That their resources they had at the disposal, just everything, and being able to like be able to use it, it was like definitely new to me. Um, Getting to hang with Pat was so cool. He was like a different kind of friend. I had like I've had friends before then, but he was a different kind of friend. He was super supportive. And he saw the talent in me and just he wouldn't let it ride. He was like always telling me what to do or how to get better. And yeah, I never really had that. So yeah,
Yeah, I think we're gonna talk a little bit more about that stuff into the fundamentals and theory of Yu-Gi-Oh on the second section. So um, going on a little bit with the timeline now. So tell us a little bit more about 2014. I guess we're up to now. Um, so you taught Mexico and a couple of ARGs there. You want to go to like break that down in detail for us?
well, okay, yeah. I would like to preface what I'm about to say with this wouldn't have been possible had it not been for the fact that I had learned goats a little before then. Pat was teaching me how to play goats. He had been like going back and forth with me with goats so much, and that increased my ability to make reads. It made me realize that in formats, you learn what cards are there, you learn how to make reads around them, and I think that's helped me in my game a lot, especially that year where I had the big streak or whatever.
So you,
What
you, you
was
must have
it?
been playing a
Yeah.
lot of goats then,
Oh
because
yeah.
you didn't like play at all during that format really, I guess. So you wouldn't have like that was kind of like a whole new thing for you. A lot of players that I've spoken to on this thing, like when they talk about getting better and stuff at the game, they never actually mentioned like goat specifically, because like that's just like a kind of different format. A lot of people just kind of say like, oh yeah, just you just practice a lot with like where we are now. So like, how do you think that's like different? I mean, what do you think about like just like let's say like this format? What if I just play tons and tons of ABC versus Metal Foes or some shit like that? So you would kind of suggest that maybe it'd be better to like try something like goats instead.
Yeah, I would say that there are specific formats, like not just GOAT. There are formats that are good for the evolution of a player, like GOATs, Dino Rabbits. Like you play Dino Rabbit mirrors, that was a very good mirror, I believe. Like it wasn't something where you just automatically won because you opened a logi or whatever. Like there were people who could play. You would run into set what's the 1900 water defense monster? I can't remember.
Snowman.
Snowman Eater, yeah, like all kind. There was all kind of things to play around and make, and just be. There were ways to be the better player, even when it wasn't seeming like you were. It was a good situation because you didn't go first. So there are more than just one format to show skill and to learn and to recognize where you have to know how to make reads. So GOATs is just my favorite one because it was the one Pat showed me first. It wasn't specifically that I thought it was better than any other one. I didn't know any other ones.
What kind of build do you play about that? Just out of curiosity.
I'm sorry, say that again?
What kind of build do you play in GOATs out of curiosity? Is it just like the standard, like Perovic, whoever his name is, or something like that?
Perovic, yes. He is a very good friend of mine, too. I've learned a lot from him, playing with him. And I've met him I met him before, like a bunch of times, and we eventually became good friends. We messaged each other. And he was one of my bigger supporters when I first started out with the Karakuri deck. He invited me to play on his DN tournaments. He invited me to those, and I just had a really good time. Yeah, I've gotten to know him really well. And yes, it is his decks. We use his decks as standards for our GOAT list.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So what would you say is the biggest achievement for you, or like, doesn't necessarily have to be like, because a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I won this event, so that's like my best achievement. A lot of people feel like, some events are more important to them than others because of like the location and that kind of stuff. So for you personally, like, I mean, you could argue like your top 4 is probably your most important one because it was your first, and it was probably like your best, your furthest you've been as well, I believe.
Yes, the first I've been.
Yeah. So do you? I guess it's probably safe to say that one is your most important.
No, I would say my most important was the first one without Karakuris.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And
That was when I realized I didn't just have to be the Karakuri guy.
Nah, that's actually really interesting. I mean, like, you obviously don't have a lot of bias towards it because a lot of people would just be like, oh yeah, it was my first tournament, my favorite deck, blah blah blah. That's best
Oh, I love
one.
the deck. I love the deck, and every now and then I see some new restoration for it, and I make a build maybe, but I still don't play it. Like I gotta recognize, I gotta be realistic with myself, so I just wouldn't play it because I love it.
Okay. And your ARGs and stuff. How did you do in the ARGs over the years? Because you've got a few ARG tops, but again, there's one thing that Patrick mentioned in his book as well. Is you actually have no wins, but you have quite a lot of tops. Why is that?
Yeah. I think winning an event does require a certain amount of skill. Sometimes not, but maybe there's just a threshold that I haven't broken yet. There's always something dumb. And it is me. It's on me every time. It's always something dumb that knocks me out. Like in YCS Austin when I was playing with Karakuris, I had a play where I could have played around track. I was playing around Gores for no reason, and I attacked with a smaller monster first when I was in time. I had like 10 cards of his 3 with a Dimensional Fisher up, and he was playing Mermails. But I played around Gores while he had a sphere. He literally had a sphere or a set card on the field. So like it's just dumb stuff like that has always knocked me out. And just this past event where I was at top 8 in ARG, was it Richmond?
Richmond.
Yeah, ARG Richmond. I had a play where I had double ABC Dragon to a Soken Tamaya, whatever that card's called. And he had a clear Crystal Wing, and I could have killed both, but I attacked in the Crystal Wing thinking that because my thing was equipped, his would just die. And guess what Crystal Wing does when you attack into it? It's just dumb stuff like that. It's always knocking me out. It's always on me.
Well, I mean, at least you recognize that. A lot of people would be, again, a little bit biased and be like, well, I got sacked by this or sacked by that. But, I mean, at least you recognize that, you have yourself to blame for that.
Yeah. That's something we like to preach to ourselves. Like, if we're going to do that, there's no point in even talking at all. Like, just recognize where you messed up. There's nothing else you can control about your opponent, so don't even talk about what your opponent did, getting sacked or whatever. That's a non-factor.
Well, then, on the flip side, I'm curious to know what do you think is like the worst case of that like happening to you, like where you did get sacked or where you actually just where you just kind of like rant and be like, oh, like, I did everything I could. He's just a dick. He ripped this card or whatever like that. Has that ever happened to you in Top Cup?
Well, I've definitely been sacked before, but well, not sacked. It's just it's like I get destroyed in time. Like when I get sacked, it happens to be time. Like, oh, he couldn't have won without time on his side, stuff like that. And that sometimes it saddens me. And like I'm not a big player who recognizes how to play in time, like play for time. I don't know how to do that, and I want to learn how to like play for time when that situation comes up, but I don't, and that's how I sometimes lose. Like he just out life forms me in a situation where he couldn't win the game if it dragged on. Sometimes that's how what happens to me.
Mm. So what's your like most recent achievements? I know you obviously got banned recently, but we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, what are your most like recent accolades?
I top 32 the ARG 25K. Was it 25K? One in Philly, and I just got top 8 at the ARG in Richmond. Other than that, I haven't really done too hot. I couldn't play YC. I can't play YCSs, and it's so sad.
I don't remember much of you in 2015, like during Necros format stuff. Did you play much then?
Oh yeah, I top nationals and I top the year before that I top or was it the same year? I think I top YCS Toronto with Necros. I top nationals and YCS Toronto.
Oh, okay, cool. I must have not been paying attention much.
So I got top 8 in YCS Toronto, and I lost in top 64 to Peter Chang
Peter
at
Cheng.
nationals. Yeah, nationals.
Isn't that the? Never mind. I probably shouldn't say that.
No, you guys hate it.
I ain't saying shit. So yeah, moving forward to where you are now. I believe you joined PPG before your ban. What's like the whole deal with the team and stuff? Because I don't think you were on ARG specifically, but were you? How do you like see teams and stuff? Like where how did that come about? You know?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll start with my first team. It was the car guys. So Kyle, Spooky, as people know, he's a good friend of mine. He was my first ever deck profile. Actually, I top it. It was my first time being like even kind of recognized at my local super games, where I had a car curry wind up deck where I would go machine dupe the car curry and turn it into three of the wind up card that looped your hand. And so that was my thing, and I got top 8 or top 4. We all split it, and he did my first deck profile. And from there, he was supporting me too. He was a big supporter of all my decks. And he came to me one day and said, "Hey Desmond, we're gonna make a team with players from Atlanta, and I'd like you and Ben to join it." So we joined it, and it was a good team. And let me tell you guys, Kyle is an amazing sponsor. He's an amazing person, and he's a human too. So sometimes bad things happen where he can't pay, and I left the team more so because I thought I was worth more. Not necessarily that he wasn't doing enough for me. Just I thought I was worth more. In PPG, they saw I was worth more too, and they offered me essentially more. And they just made it worth coming down there. And they invited me in, and they made me feel like family. And Ben and Chris came down with me because they joined TCG after I joined TCG. And then when I went to PPG, they came down with me. Machado just been an amazing person in general, amazing sponsor. He's greatest boss.
So what kind of benefits do you get in it? I mean, obviously other than like the money thing, but like from like a Yu-Gi-Oh perspective, like how do you? Because I mean, one thing my friend says to me is like when you have that many good players and that many like just on a roster, like eventually it comes to a point where it's like when you go to an event, it's like your competition is your own teammates. So like, what's the point? You know, like what?
Well, first to touch on the having multiple teams, multiple team members. I love that. I love that he's willing to even take in this many people and let them represent us. And because I'm me personally, I know I'm always showering down any knowledge I have to any of the players who I think can benefit from it. So getting a lot of people, it just increases the grapevine. There's just more knowledge going down. Someone's going to learn something new every time. And I talk to everyone who talks to me. If you ask me something, I'll tell you. So yeah, I just want to say that about having all the team members. But the team, we only have 10 members on Team A, and yeah, I don't ever necessarily sit down and say I want to play against any of them. So it makes me like want to be better. I always want to beat players like Kamal, who is I think is one of the best players in the game right now on such a hot streak. I've never beaten him before. I don't think he's better than me. I don't think I'm better than him. He's a great player. We both have much to learn from each other, but I just never beat him before. So I wouldn't want everyone sitting down against him, but. Yeah, I don't want to sit down ever against any of my teammates.
Is Kamal on Team B?
No, he's on Team A, rightfully so.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so do you guys have like your own kind of like your circle? Because I feel like like, after a certain number, it just gets like there's just too many kind of people sometimes. So how does it work with you guys? I mean, do you guys like go into events saying like, oh, we'll play this. Like, for example, I'm in CCG currently, and well, not as a main player or anything, but like they all share their lists. They discussing, and then they kind of just like the bulk of them will just enter the tournament with like the same list. So like just there at YCS Bochum, like 4 or 5 of them all joined with the exact same like card for card list basically. So like, do you guys do that same kind of approach or?
Yes, we do. Sometimes we don't always agree. Sometimes I don't even have it. Sometimes I don't even have a say so on the deck because I'll have not done as much testing as I would have liked to, and they will have, and I will just take their word for it. I trust them that way. Like mostly, my circle is just Ben, Jay, Drew, Pat, like people who I keep around me. Dion, like anyone who's there will give me information, and I'll give them whatever I have, and we just share it. And we don't like it, and we just keep our own decks. So it's never like a set thing to play all the same decks or anything.
Do you think that would be beneficial?
Um, as of late, yes.
Because the way I see it is like, um, if you all join with the kind of the same decks, then it's easier to learn from going forward. Because it's like you get more like you get like a wider sample of data to kind of look at and say like, oh well, we all played the same list and we all scrubbed, therefore chances are the deck sucked, for example, kind of thing. Whereas if you're all playing like different lists and stuff, sometimes it can get like a little bit hard to learn from, if you know what I mean.
Well, sometimes we like playing different lists definitely at locals. We don't we love taking advantage of locals for testing. So we'll definitely play different lists there if we can. And when we get to the events, if we couldn't agree on something, but we can like say this event isn't something as big, like maybe it's a regionals or something, then we'll play different lists there too. But Ben usually wants me to play the same list, and I usually want to play the same list as them. If we can't agree, then we just can't agree.
Mm. Okay, fair enough. Um, and what's like the team is like pretty young and stuff now, but like what's like the kind of major accomplishment you guys have had like together, like even just when it comes so insofar as debt building and discussions go.
Um,
So
hmm.
if you think about like, for example, you all like for CCG for example, they all just there at YCS Bochum, they took like 3 out of 4 top 4 spots with the same exact like list basically, right? Um, so while PPG is a bit like newer and stuff, um, you kind of probably have like not maybe not events recently, but like just like kind of like phases where you guys have done like a lot of testing with each other and like you feel like, oh, we've prepared enough for this event, or we've designed a really good list. um
Yeah.
do you think you guys
Actually,
have like come up with anything together that you're particularly proud of or something like that?
yeah, at the 25K, um, yeah, me and Ben played the same list, and then me, Ben, and Chris all ended up top 32ing it after like 11 rounds. Uh,
What'd you guys play?
we played Monarchs, and
Mm.
Chris, I believe, played Monarch BA. Or he played Monarch BA.
Hmm.
Yeah, he played Monarch BA, and before that, well, it was before I was on PPG. For the Nationals of 2015, I played Pat and Ben's list, and me and Ben we topped with the Necros list that they made with Armageddon Night, and yeah, it was just really amazing.
Mm.
I did like minimal testing with them before then.
Yeah.
And they just said play our deck, and I played it and did well, I guess.
Yeah. So bringing up to the present, I guess, for the timeline. Where exactly are you at now? So we know your band. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, but I've been informed that I cannot discuss drug usage on Twitch.
Not directly, but in a vague roundabout way, I guess we can say that you were.
Okay, I'll just say I I got banned for doing something I shouldn't have done, and it involved drugs. So it's just as simple as that. I don't want to go into too much detail. I don't know if I get in trouble for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but
I
three
want to be
years
on
though
the
for
problem.
like that's really harsh. I mean,
3 years.
have you like appealed or anything like that?
No, people tell me they think I have a good chance at it. I'm gonna take my time. Like I'm gonna accept whatever happens. First of all, like I've been pretty clear on that with everyone. Like it was my fault. It was a bad decision. So I will plan. I do plan on appealing it if I can. Like after I'm gonna serve at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And if I can say something is, it's just I'm really a little disappointed in the amount of time I got. I feel like cheaters get less time than this.
Yeah, exactly. Like that
I
shit's like
think that.
the thing is like that's legal in some states in your country, and yet you got 3 years for it. Like that's just I don't even know.
All right, bye, mom. Yeah, we're doing the interview. Yeah, it was just really saddening, and I told the truth, but it's fine. It's fine. I accept. I expect. I'm okay with how much time I got. I just wish cheaters would get the same. Then that's
Hmm.
all I particularly care about.
Do you think like the? I mean, obviously you're gonna say yes. It's shit that I got banned, but like I can't really think of a worse time this could have happened for you because like you just joined PPG, and like the roster grew. You guys are like about to like do the whole takeover with just how good the team is, and you get banned for 3 years.
Yeah,
Like that must be so disheartening.
yeah. They were disappointed in me too. I was disappointed in myself. Yeah, it was the saddest thing ever. But at least I got to go to a few more events after that beforehand. I heard like most people don't even get allowed in venues after they get DQ'd from an event or whatever. So it
Hmm.
was nice that it let me still do that.
Oh, you still allowed to go into venues and events themselves?
Well, no, not right now. Not, but before the ban, people
Oh.
tell me all the time. People were telling me like, you normally can't even go to the don't go to a YCS because they won't let you in because you were DQ'd. But they
Hmm.
let me in, so that
Oh,
was nice
okay.
at least until I got banned.
Yeah. You can still play ARGs, which are pretty frequent. So,
Yes, and they're just I really love the way they ran. So
do you think you're even still going to be playing in 3 years?
probably yeah.
Fuck knows what the format's going to look like by then. Um, so moving away from the timeline and just from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh all the way to where we are at now. Is there anything at all, any like major milestones and events that particularly stick out in your mind that you want to go over in a little bit more detail, or something you didn't mention?
Um, milestones. Well, I guess becoming a player with the second most tops. That was a pretty big one.
What was that?
Whenever that
Sorry.
happened, I said becoming the player with the second most tops. That was a big milestone for me.
How many are you at now?
I believe 24.
24 tops. And just for the haters out there, how many is that without ARGs?
7.
That's a pretty good number. That's a pretty good number. Um, so moving forward to our understanding of the game and such. You say you started like playing properly when you started going to super games and stuff, but like, were you always competitive before that, or just kind of like for fun?
Actually, I was no. It was never for fun. I just sucked, but it wasn't for fun. So like I had, yeah, I got competitive. I got into it like really quick. Like, I
Yeah.
started wanting competitive really quickly.
All right, so like in the if we're looking back at the early days of when you were like building your decks and stuff, and like even like maybe like halfway through your kind of career, like when you started like maybe just before your first top, if you could like look back and see yourself now, like what are some of the like major mistakes that you've made in terms of like understanding the game, playing the game, like deck building, like when it comes to actually understanding.
Well, my first problem was recognizing that I had to play a different deck than Card Curious. After that, my next problem was playing less cards. I remember the first time Pat told me, Desmond, why aren't you playing 3 upstarts? Play them. And I said, no, I could just find 3 cards to fit in that spot. And then less cards just ended up being better. Like, it just is. It always is.
Mm.
Um, Other than that, I caught on. I think I caught on rather quickly with just like the flow of advanced play, I will say.
Talking a little bit about number of cards, I mean, there's a lot of success with more than 40 cards, and I guess the most kind of famous of them is Billy Break, recent YCS winner. 42 cards, 43 cards, I think. No upstart, two desires. What do you think about
Um, I think whatever a great player tests and works and finds what works for him is the thing you should play. So not necessarily less cards. Less cards is a preference necessarily. It's like it's a starting stone. It's a starting place. And sometimes when we test, we would start with like 45 cards. We'll just find out what we don't like and we'll take it out as we go. Like, oh, I don't want this in the situation because it's bad. We'll take it out. Sometimes we test that way as we're playing open handed. So Billy, who is one of the greatest players ever, if he found 43 to work for him, who am I to say otherwise?
So you don't believe in the concept of like everything always has a correct kind of situation, a correct number, a correct like list for an
Oh,
event.
absolutely. Nothing is set in stone. I do not deal in absolutes.
Hmm.
Only six deal in absolutes.
Okay, well that's fair enough. Have you ever played like more than 40? Like when you've actually been topping regularly, like or have you always just kind of went with like Patrick's kind of idea?
No, no, I actually went against it a lot, and I played with 42 cards often.
Hmm.
If I ever played with more than 40, it had to be 42 because of divisible by seven, and it's just my favorite number. So that would just be. I had dumb things, dumb stuff like that would be a part of my processes when I make decks back then, anyway.
Um, why would you play more cards? Well, what situation would ever occur where you would think to yourself, well, I need more in my deck rather than just playing 37 or 39 now? So like
This
what?
might.
Go on.
Oh,
Go ahead.
this might sound like BS because like maybe there you can all. Some people might believe that you can always find a card to cut. But sometimes you just cannot cut a card, and sometimes you realize you need another card in your deck that you need to play. So what do? Do you cut a card anyway when you couldn't cut a card? When do you not play the card that you need to play? You got to play 41.
Hmm. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Um, so other than like, I mean, is there any other deck building kind of traits and stuff that you feel like like kind of like the major sort of hallmarks of what makes good deck building kind of thing? Like, what do you think are like what makes a good deck
Um,
builder kind of thing?
well, the testing is the most important part in the kind of testing you do. So I know that testing can be so boring because we do it a lot. Sometimes there's been brief periods where I didn't do it at all, like sometimes when school's involved or whatever. But we do it a lot, and the most important thing that you got to do is test things other than game ones. You can't just be like, all right, let's play, and then you play each other. Then someone wins and the other person goes first because he wants to play now. You got to make sure you're not trying to win. Sometimes being competitive can come up in testing sometimes. Like so, I don't know how people. I do know how people get like that, but like you got to learn how to control that and just play for learning only. And if you can do that, then the testing will be very fruitful. You'll play matches. You'll learn that you need to test sided games, test with a player going first a bunch of times to see how many times you can beat him when you go second. Like get percentages. Like Ben's very, very good with math. So we do a lot of percentage stuff here. He takes sample sizes of cards and calculates how many times we can draw them in the hand, when we'll draw them, when we should expect to lose to this card, stuff like that.
Hmm. Okay. Um. And you mentioned as well the maths there. I mean, how does that play a big role?
Oh yes. Whenever Ben's involved in making the deck, it does.
Mm.
I'm not. I don't really keep up with it because, I, like, someone else is here to do it. So I guess that's a kind of a problem with me. Like, I should learn how to do that kind of stuff. But Ben's here to do it. Like, he knows how to do it. He does it well. So I just don't. I would say, yeah.
So just to clarify for a lot of people who may not be familiar to like how because a lot of people assume when testing really just means practice. Testing and practice aren't actually the same thing. Would you agree, right?
Um.
Because like when you're practicing, that kind of means you're like learning the deck, whereas testing means you're trying to perfect the deck and you're trying to like figure out the builds and stuff. Would you say that's a fair
Yeah. Yeah.
definition?
It's actually funny that you say that because like it relates to a concept that I have in when I go to large ensemble music, like when I do music ensemble,
Hmm.
and the concept is you don't ever come here. This is not called practice. You come to rehearsal. You go home and practice. But when you come here, you're playing what you've been practicing. So yeah,
Yeah.
the concept is actually the same. Test for practice. We want to learn what deck we practicing. We definitely want to learn what deck to use. But once we find those decks, then the testing gets in, and we're doing sided games, a bunch of game ones, tons of game twos, threes, just stuff like that.
So if you have someone here, like for example, like let's say someone watching here doesn't have like any idea what you actually mean by testing. In their head, testing just means just playing games, basically. Um, give us a brief rundown of how it is that you actually test. Like, what does that mean? Like, what are you physically doing when you're testing?
Oh, cool. I actually want to talk about that. So what we would do is we'll take the deck, and while we're building it, we'll look at maybe two or three standard builds or two or three builds that have done well. Find some similarities, and then find what we think is the standard build. So we'll find a standard build of the top deck that we want to test against. So now that we've got our deck that we want to test against the top deck or the way that we believe to be the standard version of that deck, what we're going to do is we're going to open our hand up and let both players find out what they should do every turn. And yeah, essentially just open-handed is how we do it. And if someone tells you that you're doing something wrong, you fix them. Everyone's always making sure we're doing the right play. And we don't know if it's the right play, mind you. We can't say we know the right play all the time. Most times when we're testing the deck that's a standard, if none of us know it, we might have some problems with that because we don't know how to play the deck that we're testing against. So this is a lot of factors. So getting good at all of that stuff is probably part of the testing too. Or like you got to be prepared when you come to testing.
Yeah, so like you essentially just take the standard build and then like assume that that's kind of what people are going to roll with for the following event, and then you just build upon it and see what counters it, and then you kind of all play together and make sure that you both recognize technically what the best play in each perfect scenario is, etc. And then you just kind of like go from there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like tech cards and these kind of things, how do you test them? Like how do you, like, let's say like I'm teching something like I don't even know if like teching is like the correct term, but like, you know, let's say like you're playing like a brilliant fusion engine in ABC, like you want to test if that's good, for example, like
Okay, I know what you mean. So yeah, we do that in multiple ways actually. We would I'll take your brilliant fusion example for it. First we'll play games going first. And instead of drawing 5 cards, we'll just put the card in the hand. We'll go ahead and put Brilliant Fusion in our hand and draw 4 cards. So we'll see what happens when we draw Brilliant Fusion and with our certain hands. So we'll play the Brilliant Fusion and test it from there. And then we'll see if we're playing double Garnet. Maybe we'll try putting 1 Garnet in our hand to see what happens if it's that bad if you draw 1 and you can still play out of it. And then there's cards like Raigeki, where we know it's only good when you go second, but let's put it in our hand. So we'll draw 4 card hands and see if it's worth playing. Because we draw it going first and we can't play with our 4 card hand, we might not want to main deck Raigeki. So stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. What do you think are some of the most like what are like from your experience? Like, what are some of the most like amazing test sessions you guys have had? Like, what's been like some of your favorite test sessions?
My favorite sessions are when I used to get to watch Ben and Pat. They would just test for hours and I could watch because it was just there was so much to learn all the time. I love watching people mostly. Anyone who knows more than me, I'll watch you play.
Was there a particular format or something that you want, or an event that you were particularly into that you enjoyed watching, or?
Oh, Necros. That was the one right before. No. I'm not Necros. I'm thinking about YCS Toronto, but not Necros. What deck was that? Shadal's. I topped YCS Toronto in 2014 with a Shadal deck that I had Blue Eyes with a Blue Eyes Whitestone engine. But I love Shadal's.
Yeah. How did that go in testing? Like, well, what was your idea behind that?
Actually, it's just because I love the concept of +1s, and I didn't ever want to play a light monster that was just like it goes to the grave and that's it. Like that's boring. I don't want that. I want more from my light monster, and there was only one in the game that did exactly that. So white, and then and also my concept was if I didn't draw Shadal Fusion, I was gonna lose anyway. So telling me that I drew Blue Eyes was a bad thing doesn't mean anything. Like drawing Blue Eyes means nothing if I don't have Shadal Fusion, and drawing Blue Eyes means everything if I do have Shadal Fusion. It's a light monster I can make construct. So that made it okay to play Brick Eyes essentially. So I just threw it in Whitestone. If I ever drew that, I could fuse and get a +1 out of it. I can get a card later that I could fuse with later if my construct ever went to the grave, or if I played one trade in, if I drew it, I could play it. So like it just worked well with the deck, I believe.
Did you play Trading in Shadal's?
No, that was Pat's build.
Wow.
That was Pat's build.
All right.
Literally the night before, we played a bunch of games, and then we should have went to sleep. We were just playing and for pride, I guess, yeah. And he just beat me, and I still play my deck anyway.
How do you guys have like so much testing material? Like, I mean, me and my friends, we used to test on like DN, but like, I mean, you guys all test physically and in person. Like, do you just have like tons and tons of proxies, or like, do you literally just own like fucking Seto Kaiba style of like every card in the game in a playset?
Okay, for lack of a better phrase, leverates are rich. they do have every card.
So
So yeah,
you
he
just
had
have
that.
like play sets of like every obscure like shit card in the game just like lying there like ready to be tested at some point.
Ben keeps really good track of all his cards. He has a huge. Anyone who's been to the house and stayed with us will can attest to this. He has a huge collection, and he's just really good with keeping up with stuff. So we always have. There are and then when there's something we want to get, we do well at our local. We used to do well, not used to. We still do well enough at our locals where we'll go get some credit and then get what we need to test, and then or if we don't, we'll proxy it. We have no problem writing down cards and writing down the effects to get testing done.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. Um, and moving on to technical play. So, what are some things that you learned? If you could go back and think to yourself, like, well, I used to do this really badly when it came to like, sitting down to play my game, looking at my hand, like I was doing this wrong, or I was playing too fast, or I would respond too quickly to certain things. Like, what are some of like the major things that you did wrong, and that some advice that you would give to people like who want to like get better?
Um, Well, I want to give some advice on something, but it's actually never happened to me. I can say like too often. Getting tilted is something that I believe is a big problem in the game that players should always avoid because it's so easy to have it, and I can avoid it because I'm always nice, and I think that's the best way to do it. And if it comes down to being a bigger man with like getting tilted, the person who can be the bigger man, if you can recognize that your opponent's becoming upset or he's about to be start doing something to you that's going to make you upset, don't respond badly. Just let him know that there's a misunderstanding going on and find a solution to the misunderstanding. Like, just you can't continue when things have already started looking bad. You got to fix that right away. So, but there is some ways you can like take advantage of not necessarily your opponent's frustration. Like, I think you just shouldn't do that, but it just happens sometimes. Like, people do it sometimes. So I think that's something that people should learn how to avoid doing is getting tilted. Um, Another thing, something that I used to have trouble with is talking too much. I literally would give stuff away. I was done with that. I don't know how. I don't even know why I thought it was cool. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to just slam my hand on the table. And I've actually still kind of done this recently. Like when I have a hand where I just know I'm gonna win, I'll just slam my hand on the table. And like, why? Why would I do that? It's just so dumb. So that was a problem that I definitely have overcome and fixed.
Style points though.
Yeah.
Um,
Everyone thought it was cool at the time, except until I lose some of the games.
yeah. So how about the final aspect? I guess you could probably look at when it comes to playing mind games. Tell us a little bit about mind games, what you've learned, and some advice you'd give, and some tells that you think that people should pick up on.
Yes, mind games are probably that's what separates. I don't want to give it a number, but let's just say tier 8 to tier 7. Between there, mind games have to be learned for you to become that tier 8 player where you are going to be just doing really well, like being consistent. So I would say my mind games, if if you ever play against me and you thought I was talking too much, like not necessarily the talking too much where I was giving away stuff, like that was the stupid Desmond doing that. But like this is if you ever play against the advanced Desmond, I think I am now, and you caught me talking too much or like saying, "Oh man, that's a cool play." I would never make you stick to anything because my belief is that when you mess up, if it was something that you know I could never have fixed, like scammers, you forgot a scam search, I'll let you take it back. So with that in mind, I can steer you into the wrong place sometimes. Like, oh man, what, you gonna do that? Because like any player who tells you something that sounds good or is aesthetically pleasing to the ear, it just sounds like, oh man, that is a good play. If he tells it to you, you should probably watch out for it. Why would he ever tell you? Why would he even hint at it? Because like if he gives you the whole dragged out, oh my god, he's gonna do that. That's a huge tell. Do not fall for that. Look at me giving it away.
I can think of one example about you where you summon a manju and your opponent like looks at their face down and thinks, and then doesn't do anything, but like they like pretended they were thinking, and then you had to read that it was Mirror the Ice Barrier straight away. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. What happened with that? Oh yeah, he looked at it and I knew that it couldn't be torrential because if it was torrential, you're not gonna look at a torrential on a manju. There's just no concept. There's no mind There's no way your mind processes that as it's worth checking it out or giving it away. That it could be something I could respond with. So once he did it, it was just over from there.
Yeah. All right.
Shout out
And
to Pedro Perano.
what? Sorry.
He said, "Shout out to Pedro Perano."
Shout outs to Pedro, bro.
That was my opponent who I did that against.
And another part actually that I forgot about. I don't want to say cheating, but like, what are some things that you think are questionable that people do that maybe not might not be legal, but stuff that like you don't feel comfortable with, kind of thing.
Um, well, comfortable is like a relative term because
Exactly. I mean, cheating in general can be quite subjective, but
yeah, I'm really open to everyone being fair play until I catch you. I don't like going in with the idea that someone was a cheater at first, especially that can like destroy a whole game. That can destroy my whole match with you. We could just ruin all of our chances of being friends if I just came in thinking that.
see, when I
If
say
you cheat,
cheater, I don't mean someone who like stacks their deck and like pile shuffles like in a way that they like draw the card they want and then like sleight of hand. Like I don't. That's not what I mean. I mean like questionable stuff. So like for example,
gray
like
area.
I brought this example up when I was talking to Mike Albanese, but at my regional recently, my opponent activated a scale, Metalfoes, and then targeted his Bismugear, popped his Bismugear, set Metalfoes Fusion, and then as soon as he set his card, I like leaned over the table and I was like, oh, what did you set, sorry? And then like kind of like distracted him from like the Bismugear, and then he forgot the Bismugear. So like, that's actually cheating apparently.
Yeah,
I
that's a
didn't,
mind game. I don't think that's illegal. That's not cheating. I don't
really?
think that's a gray area.
I
That's a
got a
mind game.
I got a warning for that.
What?
Yeah, because it's unsportsmanlike conduct to
I've never
distract your
heard
opponent.
that. Oh well, I hope I never. I don't do that anyway. I would never.
Yeah.
I do not do that, but I think that's a mind game. Actually, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So for you, like, what are some things that you think are gray areas that you wouldn't really do, but you can understand would be legal, but then you'd understand if they were illegal, kind of thing. If you know what I'm going with that.
Oh yeah. So some of the things that some of my friends have discussed actually, me and some of my friends is well. Here's one of the things that's big to me. If something happens that your opponent does wrong, and you're only not saying something because it'll work out for you, I hate that. That is cheating. There's no gray area with that. I think that's cheating.
Wait, what
But
do you
some
mean
people might
exactly?
find that questionable. Like let's say my opponent activates a card that destroys his scales, and it'll work out for me in the long run. I recognize that it'll work out for me, but I played Magical Spring the turn before, so he can't destroy his scales. He doesn't know this, but I do. If I don't tell him, I believe that
Oh,
person
so
is
it's like
cheating.
not maintaining mandatory effects, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, like, and you, if you know, like, if you don't know and neither one of y'all know, then whatever. Like, it's honest, but like, look in your heart and tell. If you know, like, you're cheating. You're cheating if you know.
I mean, that is technically cheat. There's no like gray area with that.
Oh yeah. Well,
You know what I
actually,
mean?
maybe I suck at coming up with an example for a gray area. I don't know anymore. I feel like I always come to the right answer.
So
Maybe.
you think you're kind of like a pretty honest player and stuff. I mean, you mentioned like you let players like take back and stuff like that. So I mean,
It has to be a reasonable take back.
oh, okay,
Uh,
really?
like what I mean by that is something like, well, I already gave this example earlier. So like, let's say my opponent um summons Dante, mill scam, sets cards, passes turn. I draw for turn. He didn't search scam. He didn't search for scam. Now, I'm a player who just drew my sixth card. I have not given him any information. He doesn't have any reason to know any cards in my hand. And if he asks me to search, not even for this kind of situation, I tell them to search, honestly. So I'd be like, make sure you remember. But
Mm.
if he asks me to search for a card, to search, why would I ever tell him no? You just should not tell him no. So
Really?
yeah, like the only time I can see myself not letting them take it back is if I go summon Manju and summon activate Kaleidoscope, and he goes, oh no, wait a minute, I forgot to search. I want to search Farfa. Then no, it's too late by then. Like I've given you information, like you know what I have. I will not let you take that back. But if I draw my card and you say, oh, I forgot to search for scam, I won't tell him no. I would hope he showed me the same courtesy later too, and most people do. Well, all of them do. Sometimes.
What if your opponent still has Tour Guide in deck? They have one set card, no other cards. You attack over with like your field. You've got like one set card, one in hand, one monster or something like. It's a very simplified game state. You attack over his face down. Blah blah blah. He draws for turn. Oh shit! Forgot to search Skarm with no cards essentially. He's on 0 cards. So that's a huge advantage at that point because you're getting Tour Guide in a simplified game state. You know, would you let someone take that back?
Yeah, it follows in the same thing. Like if I know 100% that the only card he can relevantly search is tour guide, and like he shows me there's a tour guide in his deck still, I'm like, yeah, I know you would search tour guide. Who the hell wouldn't search tour guide? I would let
Mm.
him take it back.
But it's like so clutch, you know. It's like he might
Oh
like
no,
pull it
I would
back,
never
you know.
let that. Let me give you an example of one of my a story that will tell you why I don't let that determine if I get to give him a take it back or not. Um, it was the Nationals of 2013 when I first played Card Curries, and my opponent was round 7. I was like X2, and my opponent was well over maybe 12 minutes late. And a judge who I know came up, and I don't want to say his name. I don't know if this is something he shouldn't do or not. But he came up to me and says, "Desmond, are you ready for the win?" Like I was like, "No, no, no." My opponent came to me and said he lost a card and he's looking for it, so I'm just gonna give him the time. And he came. I gave him enough time. He came to the table and beat me. And to this day, I do not regret it. I will
Oh, like
never.
2-0 you, like kind of like 2-1, like
Yeah, he beat me. Yeah, 2 on
yeah.
me. Yeah, whatever.
All right.
However it happened, I don't remember. But yeah, he beat me
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't give him a game loss or a match loss. I just said, let's play it out. I play card curries. We're not going to go into time. Like either I win or I lose. We played it out, and I do not regret it to this day. Like it's just something like this man paid money to play it in the event, and like he's come probably from a far away. It's just time. Like I don't think I would. I don't think I could really see myself just being a dick like that.
Mm. What if it was like on the bubble or something, you know?
Golly, man. Even if I'm lying, I'm not gonna tell you. I've always told one side of the story. Like, but like, no, even on the bubble, man. Like, even if I think, like, even if I lose, like, I want to say that I would do it. Maybe who knows? Who knows? I cannot really say until a man gets into that position.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's happened to me too much. But honestly, I've done it. I think I've been consistent so far. I have been.
All right, fair enough. So people in chat watching, if you guys can like start throwing your questions out, just literally anything. I'm sure Desmond will be more than happy to answer whatever. Before we move on to the final parts here, I just got a couple of questions I'm going to throw at you before we end because we got about 10-15 minutes left of solid questions. So you guys should just ask whatever. So moving on to a couple of questions that I had, just generic stuff. What are some of your favorite formats and why?
Card curry, not card curry format. I always call it that, but I guess that format where it was windups and Dino Rabbit and Mermails, like Mermails had just got thing. I don't know what format that is, but that format only because I played card curries and it did kind of well. The second one, this is probably my favorite format before all, is goats. I love goats, and if we consider cube a format, this would be my favorite overall. Cube drafting is drafting in Yu-Gi-Oh is so fun. I love it. I absolutely love it.
What's so good about Cube? Someone actually asked that in chat. Like, what is it that you love so much about Cube?
Well, I think any deck building opportunities is where a player can show his skill, and I love playing new cubes because I would just go play with anyone's cube because I know how to cube. I know how to draft. I know what to read. My history of the game, like my knowledge of the history of the game, is well enough where I know what card did what in what format and why it's here. So like I should know this card is good. So I think that just makes me do well at cube.
Mm. And what do you think are some hallmarks of good formats? What are some of the best formats you've played in, and why?
Well, I think the hallmark of a great format is a format where your where your opponent gets to interact with you, and I think one of the few formats that did that was the format where Mermails were really dominant. Sure, you could probably get OTK'd, but like I don't think Dark Hole was a thing back then, and Mermails went back and forth a lot. I had pretty good matches with Mermails. I didn't play windups or Dino Rabbit ever, so I played a windup card curry deck, and my deck was always hand loop, so there was really no playing then. So I never really played a deck that interacted with my opponent. Except Shadal. Shadal was definitely a format where I enjoyed. Necros and Shadal. That was my favorite. Necros is one of the formats where you interacted all the time because you couldn't leave a field. You had to play it right and play around cards until you got to where I'm talking about Necros after Djinn, by the way. Yeah, you have to play with your cards. You can't just beat your opponent.
Yeah.
So I think that's the mark of a good format where no one just loses the game because your opponent went first.
What do you think about floodgates? as a concept.
Ban them.
Mm.
Ban them all.
Well. What about the argument that they're necessary evils?
They are not. I think. I think. Well, actually, this brings me back to what the previous question. I think like deck formats are, and some people might disagree, but I think similar deck format, not similar deck, same deck formats or 1-2 deck formats are better than multiple deck formats. So if you're playing decks that are similar or the same, these floodgates shouldn't be happening. You should be playing a deck that's the best and can interact with your opponent, not a deck that's not the best and you came with floodgates to beat the best deck. And people who do that, that's fine. You can do that. I just prefer to play the better deck, the best, what I think is the best deck, and now I got to play cards to beat the floodgates.
Which is really annoying because now you have to
Yeah.
play shit cards that don't help your deck. Um, Floodgates. What else have I got? Favorite card or cards? Obviously,
Spirit of the Harpy Harpist.
Oh yeah, I think I knew that. Shit. Um, what do you think about cards like Maxi for the game in terms of like?
I think hand traps are very healthy for the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It can deal with the fact that you both players can't go first.
mm. What about the argument that like, well, especially in a format like this, like let's say like you go first with like ABC and you do your combo and then you have it, and then you end with Maxine hand. Well, it's like, well, shit. Thanks for coming. So
um, I think every deck can deal with. I can't say I can't just give you an example of when I've dealt with that situation. I want to say I could if the hand came up, or I could play my best of my ability. But yeah, that honestly does sound pretty bad.
yeah, like.
I still think they're necessary. Those are a necessary evil.
Mhm.
Like it can be really bad, but sometimes it's. I don't think it's just always that bad. I think it's good because you need the maxi to stop your opponent from setting up the invincible board, and he can still have traps because ABCs will have traps. But as long as you don't make that invincible board, I can play and you can play. I can play my cards through your traps. There's some kind of playing going on, interaction. But other than that, if you just go first and you open the combo, I couldn't do anything.
Mhm.
I don't have a chance to do anything while you're doing your turn.
Because there's like, like for example, some decks get like punished way more than other decks, for example. So like, if we look at like Burning Abyss and Necros, like during that format, like if you maxi Necros, like they can usually just like, you can play around maxi quite easily by like having Valk in hand, and you can just Kaleido Valk and Unicore instead of like, you know what I mean? You know how it goes, right? But if you have like something like a Burning Abyss where like, you need to give your opponent like a +3 to end on like a decent board kind of thing, you know what I mean? So it like severely punishes some decks more than others, and this format is kind of like that as well, where if you maxi something like ABC, if they're going second against you, then it's like it's really big, that can just win the game on its own.
Yeah. Actually, I believe that that when you have the maxi, or not necessarily just like having it. I think that if you don't, well, oh yeah, I don't know how else to play with the format without it. 'Cause it just has to be there.
Hmm. It's been cool in formats where like you get like like a +1 or 2 maximum out of it, but like especially with the upcoming
Well,
format.
actually, what you were saying brings me to a point where it brings me back to your question where you asked me something about if the but like where we would play. Well, I was mentioning how I want 1 or 2 deck formats.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play the deck where it's a super explosive deck and you could just win turn one, you should be prepared to lose to Maxi. Like the plant deck or the synchro deck, not the plant deck, but like that synchro deck that Chris played with, that he showcased. It was a really cool deck,
Yeah.
and if you got Maxi, you kind of earned it. You were trying to play something that just super explosive and like really had no other kind of route.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess that's one way you could look at it, indeed. Um, Shit, I had one last question before I was going to go to Q&A and I forgot it. We can come back to it. But yeah, other than Floodgates, like, well, I mean, I guess Floodgates would probably... Never mind, we'll come back to it. Alright, so let's see here. What have we got? Beaky asks, have you seen Alistair Albans versus Alan Pennington rap battles? And if yes, what do you think?
I'm sorry, no, I have not seen that. I will check it out.
I don't know what that's referring to. I'm assuming it's some kind of inside joke. Desmond, why do you always cheat in Cube even though you said you don't cheat? And that was said by This Isn't Drew Carter.
He is right next to me.
Wasn't me, bro.
He's a bastard. Okay, next question.
Let's see. Why do you always have Imperial Order in your cube if you hate floodgates?
Come on, like this is
That wasn't me.
who asked that?
This isn't Drew Carter.
Okay, can we please get to the next question? That's not him. If there are any.
Do you have any tips to improve as a already semi-decent player, like someone who can bubble an event?
Go to more events. You're probably not going to enough events, so go to more. Go to them all if you can. Like practice a lot. Obviously, go to your locals a lot too. But just go. The next step is to keep going to more events. Maybe you have to bubble more. So I would say definitely just keep going to more events and find that player who is your local hero. Like maybe I got lucky and Pat just yeah, I'm gonna help you. But like find someone, pressure them, get help.
I really envy America for that reason. Like you guys have like locals like every other day, and like even your regionals, like they're just like every like other week you have like a regional, and your regionals are like hundreds of players, you know, and ours over here like you'd be lucky to get like 100 people at a Scottish regional. It fucking sucks. But yeah, rant over. Let's see, where are we at? I don't know if you're friends with Corey. Apparently, do you know if Corey will return after his ban?
No, Corey McDuffie. I believe he's just done with Yu-Gi-Oh. So I've been told.
Actually, I completely forgot he got banned as well. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. I think the chat is just fucking trolling right now. There's not actually not many great questions. Um, but yeah, is there anything that you wanted to maybe go back over, or anything you wanted to bring up before we sign off?
I just want to give a huge shout out to George Machado, the owner, PPG co-owner, both the owners actually. Philippe, I'm just so glad to be a part of the team. Thank you for letting me on. They've been a major improvement in my life. Yeah, that's just about it.
Shout outs to PPG boys.
And
All
shout
right.
out to my boys. And shout out to all my friends and my homies, especially Drew. I was having some problems actually. He just helped me out recently. Him and Noah Green. I wanted to give a huge shout out to them. They've been amazing friends.
Oh, that's good. Shout outs to TCG boys. um, I think that's it for us tonight. It's been how long have we been? An hour? Yeah, about an hour. Okay, cool. So for those of you who joined late or whatever, you'll be able to catch this on YouTube. I'm gonna upload this straight after. Thank you so much to Desmond for joining me. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you here, and
Likewise.
all the best for the future. And hope to hear more of you, at least for the ARGs in the next coming months and years before your ban gets lifted. So all the best, and
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys,
Ladies.
signing out.